We're in Parasha of KORAH, and the Alter Rebbe, in a number of Maimarim of KORAH, analyzes the aspects which we've discussed previously of the mind, and that is Chochmah and Bina. Now you will recall, we've discussed this before, that Chochmah means, in our Hasidic psycho-spiritual system, that the point of inspiration, the birthing of a thought, the moment the thought begins its journey into consciousness, it's crossing from the boundary of subconsciousness to consciousness, from ayin to yesh. It begins to have an impression. But at that stage, it's a mere flash of illumination. It's a moment of inspiration. It hasn't yet been developed. It hasn't yet been involved. It's not an idea yet. That's called the stage of Chochmah, the crossing of that boundary into somethingness. Then what we naturally do is we spend time on that inspirational moment to evolve it into a thought process. We analyze it, we give it length and breadth. It becomes an idea. So that is called the Bina process. Chochmah is masculine relative to Bina's femininity. So in a sense, we're saying Chochmah is a seed, which we have then implanted in our mind. We plant it into the earth of consciousness, and that planting produces growth. That's Bina. And the process of nurturing that seed and allowing the growth, that's the feminine nurturing process. So you have masculinity and femininity, relatively speaking, between Chochmah and Bina, two mental processes. And he goes on to say that it is during davening that we actually employ these two in order to have another flow called rotzoi and shov. Namely, we want to initially return to the source. We become so enamored in that moment of illumination, which is yet close to its source, that we want to be there. The soul wants to return there. However, we have a sense of obligation, a sense of responsibility for our mission, for the soul's mission in this world. And therefore, there's a returning from the source back into the coalface of real life. That's called shov. So you have the flow, rotzoi and shov. Rotzoi and shov. We want to return to the source, and we want to come back then, because we feel our responsibility, into the real world. And that stems from the Chochmah and Bina. So this is far more sophisticated than most analyses of the nature of mind, and we've just scratched the mere surface by saying these few words that I've enunciated so far. But let's see if we can actually interpolate it into our inner consciousness through a meditative exercise. So gently close your eyes and just become aware of a thought that you may have thought of earlier today or yesterday. One thought, a pleasant thought. And how did it pop into your head? And therein lies a mystery. It's a bit like when you read a book and you begin to thoroughly enjoy the author, the writing. That means you've already taken the introductory chapter, this point source, and you've read the rest of the book. You've evolved it. You understand what the author is saying. Chochmah, the initial chapter or the preface, the introduction, and then the book itself, Bina, understanding. And now, having read it and understood it, you really want to go back and read more books by that author. You love what he or she may have written. And that love drives you back to the source, to the author. You want to meet the author. You want to connect with the author. Well, the author of life is God, and we're reading his book. We're leading life. And when we deeply contemplate and meditate, that arouses within us a love for God, and we want to return to the source. Rotzoi, return and run to the source. So we do. We try to make contact. Davening is the point of contact that we have with the grand author of creation. But then we realize that what we need to do is to come back into the real world, because that's what the author wants. The author wants the information to be played out in our lives. God wants the Torah text to become a living tradition within the world itself. Shov, we return to the coalface, to life, with a sense of responsibility. And we do so because we love God. In the case that we mentioned earlier, we love the author. Therefore, these two aspects, Chochmah and Binah, point source and development, are the two ways that we keep oscillating constantly in life. Gently open your eyes, coming all the way back and taking the lesson and making a commitment this week to observe this kind of toing and froing within our lives and in the lives of the world.